record on there, record on here, and go. Hello everybody and welcome to Sonic Talk number 266, recording today live on Wednesday the 16th of May. Will be available on all the usual channels, including SoundCloud that we're using now. We're also putting this up on SoundCloud so you can get hold of it that way, as well as YouTube. Hopefully, if everything goes well with the video recording, I've added a new function to my record button. It passes a MIDI event through one computer, which is used for the switching, to the recording computer with a mouse hovering over the correct button that clicks at the right point. So it's a fantastic thing. Yeah, well, it makes me happy. It means that I don't have to leave the chair and I can look around and see the numbers go around. Anyway, so welcome everybody. Sonic Talk number 266. I've got a couple of guests with me this week. Rich is not available this week, but he did a sterling job of just me and him as a duo last week. I very much appreciate that, and I very much appreciate my guests here. And I think I will start by saying hello to Mr. PJ Tracy from PJ Tracy Music, because we don't often get to see him in video. So let's just have a big hand for PJ Tracy from PJ Tracy. Oh, PJTracySound.com, isn't it? It's your new moniker. So you're there with your high quality germanium signal path this week. Are you still using the same one? What are we doing? SM7?
I am doing an SM7B this week through a Chandler Little Devil preamp, attempting to up the gain without running it through a compressor or an equalizer.
Sounds good, actually. I've got crummy earbuds on, and your voice sounds really fulsome, and mine sounds terribly thin and tinny. So, thank you very much.
You sound good. You sound good to me.
It must be my buds, actually. I usually wear headphones, but I've been trying to it's my vanity. You see, I want people to see my ears. I don't know why. I'm not sure why that is.
And beautiful ears they are.
They are.
But they would be better painted green, I think.
Golden ears, yeah. Bragging again, hardly. Anyway, well, thanks for joining us, PJ. And we'll go straight over to Mr. Mark Tinley, who's also joining us this week. Likebeing.com. Let's have a look. There's your lower third there. How are you, Mark?
I'm very well, thank you.
Glad you could join us. As I said, when there's a picture on your Skype, when I'm ringing you and you get an icon that comes up, which is your sort of placeholder image, it's you in a bright blue jacket in a really posh studio touching the edge of a synth that I didn't have quite time to work out. Does that ring any bells as to where that might be?
Sphere, actually. It's Sphere, and it's one of those modern blonde ash Moogs that I'm touching.
Okay. Could you do me a favour? Could you tilt your screen slightly towards me so that we can or tilt the camera slightly towards me, because you're ever so slightly. Yeah, that's it. You're kind of that's better. You're more in frame now. Anyway, Mark, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, it's a bit big.
Well, it's all right. It's fine here. Don't worry. So let's make a start. Now I've got a video for this, and there's no reason. Let's make a start anyway. So here we go. This is the first topic, and this was this rather lovely coloured pencil drawing of Jean-Michel Jarre, Synthesasia. This is on Red Bull Music Academy. He on May the 16th he did Academy lecture at Les Nuits Sonores Festival on May the 16th, and somebody interviewed him. In fact, that somebody was Patrick Thevenin. I really hope I'm in a minefield here of French pronunciation, aren't I? Christ, I'm going to get into right trouble. Anyway, he chose his top 10 favourite synthesizers, and there's all the usual suspects here. I mean, we would have expected to see the EMS VCS3, and there it is, as you would think. And then he's got a little paragraph about each one. It's a good read, actually. And then obviously the ARP 2600. Very pleased to see that too. Is that the 20? No, is that the emulator module? ARP 2500. Yeah, that's that one as well. And then Fairlight CMI. And then the JD800. I was really surprised to see that, which made me think about a couple of things. So I'm going to play a video to kind of intro that. So here we go. Sounds pretty massive. Not sure what that's doing in there for some reason. That was a vuvuzela. Must have been around World Cup time. Some lovely stuff in there. I know that Dave Spears has been as a massive exponent of the vintage of the JD800, and I was reading a little bit about it. And on Vintage and Explorer, there's a good paragraph actually. It says it was the Roland's answer to half a decade of hard to program synthesizers covered in sliders. The sounds are based on the D50, but updated for the 90s with multimode filters and lots of tweakability. I will carry on, but I wanted to sort of just a quick detour. I'd never really come across one of these, and then fortunately, Mark, it turned out that you were a big fan of the JD800. What was so special about it?
I'll start by saying that I think Roland were the first company really to get digital filtering right. So in terms of getting anything to sound even vaguely like an analog synth, I think they were kind of leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. I sort of remember like the Korg M1, the filtering on that was basically like a low-pass filter with no resonance, and the same with...
Yeah, it's pretty crummy.
You know, most of the Yamaha stuff. I think maybe the SY77 eventually came along with something, but, you know, in terms of like getting that digital resonant filter with the 24 decibel per octave kind of roll-off thing happening and sounding convincingly analog, Roland were just way ahead of the game. So they had it in their samplers. So I had an S770 sampler, which had fabulous filters.
Oh, yeah, I remember those things. I had a 760.
And then the D50 had like all the sample stuff in it. So it had like loads of samples in it. And they did have a resonant filter, I think, on the waveforms in the D50, but not on the actual samples itself. So when this thing came out, it came out with pretty much the same sample set as the D50 and then like a whole load more, and then there were a whole load of cards that you could plug into the back of it to put more samples in it. Frustratingly, you couldn't put your own samples in it, but what it did have were these fabulous filters and like multi-mode filters like band pass or low pass or high pass, so you could kind of really start to construct things, or for me, I could construct things in exactly the same way that I could construct things in my sampler. So it meant that I could build really synth-sounding sounds out of samples, and that's what I like about sample and synthesis, really. And it was just sort of a bit ahead of everything else. And then you could layer stuff up, and it had a very nice chorus in it, and other good effects and stuff, and you know, it was playable and controllable. I do remember it kind of went wrong quite a lot when it got dust in it.
Well, it does look a bit like a little bit like a kind of PG programmer slapped onto just the basic brains of something, doesn't it?
The faders were very cheap actually. They didn't have the same sort of quality as earlier Roland synths, and it used to randomly reprogram itself. So I owned one, and then I got Nick into them. So Nick Rhodes had one and used to use it live. He might still use it live, actually. But we used to have to turn we'd have to turn all the controls off, turn the control panel off, because if we didn't, I'd set up a patch for him, and he'd be playing, and it would just suddenly change sound in the middle of a song.
Oh, really? Can you switch off all the controls, or was it a local mode or something like that? I
think I turned local off or something. Yeah, I know. I found a way of doing it, because after taking it apart several times and cleaning it all out, I sort of had to find another solution to it. So
you'd be familiar with this particular shot here, which is on retrosound.de, the insides of a JD800.
Yes.
Which actually looks, I mean, it's funny, it's obviously that huge surface-mounted board for all the faders and what have you. So that would be the bit that you'd be familiar with, I'd imagine.
I had to take one apart in South America, and we couldn't get any spares for it, and I sort of remember trying to make a part for it out of an old biro or something. But it was almost like, well, if I can't mend this thing, we're not going to be able to do the show. And it was all, you know, like one of those moments.
Good grief. That is a bit heavy. Just a few more moments on the on the specs, actually, quickly before we come to PJ. 24 voice polyphony, ROM-based digital synthesizer, 6-part multi-timbral. I didn't realise that. 61 key, no arpeggiator or sequencer. Produced between 91 and 93. I know, PJ. Did this? First of all, this was a bit of a surprise. There is another surprise in this list as well, but we'll come to that in a sec. I mean, Were you surprised to see this on Jar's list, or are you familiar with this machine and know it needs to be there?
Yeah, no, I wasn't all that surprised. I mean, obviously everybody has their own proclivities, but I remember trying to find one of these in the late 1990s before the advent of all the internet sites on which you can source these things easily, because this synth was the darling of a lot of industrial bands from the late 80s, Skinny Puppy and Ministry and bands like that, and the early 90s. And I remember thinking, oh, I really want one of these, because I was playing in some experimental punk synth outfits, at that time, and I couldn't find one. But I remember playing around with it in the shop in the early 90s and thinking, wow, what a cool synthesizer. And as I recall, I know Dave Spears is a huge advocate of this synth. At one point, we talked about what is our default controller in the studio, and I believe this is his. Yep. I believe this is.
Well, I guess it must have had a nice feeling keyboard. But the other thing about that, obviously, is that, as I've said before, if you've got a synth with lots of controls on it and they all output MIDI CC, although if the faders are knackered and they keep throwing things randomly, it's a really good way to control soft synths if you just map them up, because you can just reach for an envelope and reach for a filter, and it's really
exactly
easy. So this makes perfect sense.
And as an aside, in the other room, I have an S50 sampler that somehow I inherited over the years. I just recently dug out of storage. And
is that quick discs? What does that use?
Yeah, I don't even know. I haven't even looked.
I think that uses 3.5-inch floppy disks.
Right.
Almost certain it does.
Yep. My business partner, my studio partner, found it in the garage. So we're
these are the sort of things that it's nice to just have about the place. In fact, I went up to do some, which is part of our next topic, to do some troubleshooting on a system up at Will's place, and brought back my trusty Yamaha CS15, which I haven't fired it up yet to see what, but it looks great. It looked great with a light on it. Just picture it there in the background against the black backdrop with just, you won't be able to see a thing. It'll just be like a kind of winking red light.
That'd be fantastic.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if it is.
Ominous.
Yeah, well, certainly. Let me see. If we go back to Jean-Michel Jarre's top 10 favourite hits, obviously we have the JD800, then the Memory Moog, which I would fully expect to be there, to be honest. I mean, that's one of his signature sounds. RMI keyboard computer. I remember seeing it. I've not actually touched one of those in person. What's this one? This is Eminent 310, which looks like a sort of organ. I think that must have been some sort of... it's like a string machine, the Eminent. It had good strings on it, didn't it? And then, rather bizarrely, the Teenage Engineering OP1, which is great. I mean, he seems to say that this is a classic. He says, in fact, I'm sure that musicians will still be using the OP1 in 50 years, which is quite a bold claim. And, of course, the Mellotron, the 1963 one. I don't know if there was anything else in there that you would... any of the oddities in there that you've actually had the chance to play with yourself, Mark? I mean...
Only the VCS3, but... well, actually, no, I haven't played with the VCS3. I played with an AKS Synthy, but it's actually the same thing in a different box, so...
I'm going to buy one of those before I die. I've always wanted... The idea of having the synth in the suitcase is just... There's something really kind of... I don't know what it is. It appeals to both my love of synthesizers and of luggage at the same time. So it's an absolutely perfect synthesizer for me. I know Dave just got hold of a Synthi AKS, and I'm incredibly envious. I've never been able to get a decent sound out of a VCS3. I must admit, ever. Oops, you're not Rich, are you?
Oh, I really use that a lot, especially for processing other synths that don't sound quite as interesting. But what I really like about it is those little pegs that you put in the breadboard, and the fact that the breadboard looks like battleships did when I was a kid.
And also,
I just feel like I should have someone on the other side of it, like with another breadboard, and we should do that thing that Rich Hilton.
You sunk my battleship,
facing opposite each other with laptops, but we should do it.
It'd be brilliant, and you can press a sound, and if the sounds are in any way similar, there's something happens that you have to take a drink or something, maybe. I don't know. EMS, a VCS3 drinking game. Now that is a brilliant idea. Mark, did you know anything about the pins on the VCS3? Because there's different colours, aren't there? There are different colour different. Do you know what that was? I remember
know what they were, and I can't remember what they were. Some of them had capacitors in them. Some of them were just
for attenuation.
Some of them had capacitors and some of them had resistors. So they did slightly different things. There were red ones, green ones, and beigey coloured ones, I think.
Okay. I can't remember. Somebody in the chat room will definitely know this for sure. But yeah, as your head in the chat room says, just stick a VCS3, just stick an SK1 in a suitcase, and then that'll solve my problem for my both. But sadly, I don't think that's quite going to do. I know, but PJ, you've seen any of those things in the flesh? Because some of them are pretty. I mean, they're pretty random. I mean, the Mellotron you'd expect to see, and I imagine you might have. Have you ever had your hands on a memory Moog?
I have actually. Yep.
I never have actually.
Yep. Years and years ago, one was brought into this studio when I was working in here in the 1990s, and got to play it.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Also, I've played around with the Synthia AKS, and I too would like to own one of those. I think running anything through it gives it this kind of burnish that I just love. You know, it's just a wonderful, wonderful filter. And then other than that, I'm trying to think. No, but I'm interested in the Teenage Engineering OP1. That looks like a really, really cool little box.
It is. I mean, I reviewed it, as you know. I only had it for a very short. Yep. It's one of those. I mean, at the time, I remember. You know, it's such a beautiful thing. You kind of almost want it, whether it's any good or not, because it's just such a beautiful piece of design and engineering. But it is, you know, I mean, it's not sonically all that rewarding, I must admit. But I mean, it's great fun.
Does it reward experimentation?
I'm just trying to think back now. It's the sort of thing that once you kind of get fluent in it, I think you could quickly throw together some groovy ideas. But I don't think that they're necessarily going to be any better than, say, using the IK oscillator or the K oscillator 2 or something like that. I mean, obviously, because really it's going to be more of a sketch pad for a lot of people, and you're likely to flesh that out later anyway. But I mean, the fact that you can export things and what have you is pretty good. And there are some and it has been updated a few times, so there have been some interesting differences in the OS. I'm not familiar with it because I don't have it anymore, so I can't say what they are exactly. But yeah, it's a hard. I mean, particularly for the Americans, it's a hard price to swallow because it's not cheap. You know, it's an expensive piece of. I mean, it's like €800, so it's going to be about $1,000, I reckon, or something approaching that. So
yeah, and for that you can buy a Tetra or
you buy a JD800.
Yeah, you could buy a JD800 exactly. Let's see.
Or a V-Synth. I bought a V-Synth. Absolutely love the V-Synth.
Oh, right. What does the JD800 go? What did you get the V-Synth for, out of interest? I mean, price-wise, if it's not...
$650, I think. $650 or $700, I can't remember.
Is that the rack-mounted version or the one with the keyboard?
Oh, I bought one with the keyboard because I needed some keys because I kept playing everything on little keys and my music was getting a bit kind of... you know, constrained to 2 octaves, and I thought, hang on a minute, why am I only writing these kind of music with such narrow kind of sonic?
All your bass lines were just 1 octave.
Tiny keyboard, yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, we had Roland in last week, and we did a little Q&A session with the JP50. Had a demonstrator came down by the name of Gareth Bowen, who is an independent guy. Actually, it was really interesting. I was talking to him sort of during the day when we were filming the stuff, and it turns out he was Tricky's musical director for like 15 years. So he put all of the music that Tricky made in the studio together for a band to play live, because I know Tricky actually did tour quite a lot, and he's been all over the world with that until quite recently. And so yeah, I'll try and get that edited up for next week, and that would be quite interesting.
I look forward to that.
It was good. I mean, because he was quite honest and straightforward, you know, and it didn't feel like a sales pitch, because I said, well, I'm not convinced that, you know, this, that, and this. So I hope it comes across that way, because it's always difficult to figure out how to pitch these product demonstrators come down to show something, because they've obviously got a sales job to do, whereas I've got an editorial job to do. So I'm hoping I think we got this one about right. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that came out.
And then I just wanted to make a small mention that if anybody wants any experience with the sounds of that organ, the Eminent organ,
right,
that it's included in Dave Spears's String Machine.
Ah, yes, it is in the VSM.
library.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
And it's got the Eminent has got a real quality to it, hasn't it? It's that sort of, it's almost Selena-like, but it's quite different, isn't it? At the same time,
It's the predecessor to the Selena, isn't it? Isn't that?
Yes, I think you could be right. Although let me just have a look at this one. I don't think does that be the predecessor? That looks a bit older than a Selena, or maybe it's a bit newer than a Selena. Those faders, maybe it's something slightly different. What does he say about it? 1970. It's Oxygen and Equinox used it heavily to this day, along with VCS3. They're one of the fundamental instruments of my music. It's an organ developed by the Dutch, who were first to figure out how to create chords from electronic sounds. It was a string on side. Oh yes, you're right. It was from this first. It looks very futuristic, actually, doesn't it? Those fader caps look almost 80s.
Yeah.
The background story to the sound is that the VCS3 and the Eminent pass through a small stone, which is the phaser. It's those kind of Oxygen pads and Equinox pads, isn't it? Those for guitars create a very opulent sound, but more electro. Good article though, and I don't know if the actual his talk will be on YouTube somewhere, but I'm guessing it would be in French. So if it is, I mean, maybe someone can translate it and be quite interesting to see.
Do either of you have any experience with the original Fairlight? Because I know that's listed there. I played with a Fairlight Series 2 and a Fairlight Series 3, but I've never had.
No, I never have. I've seen one we've been out at Gabriel's place a couple of times. In fact, we went out and he let us film. I think it was the original Fairlight because we did for a top 20 greatest synth or greatest samplers. It was in that, and it was in a room, and we got to they couldn't fire it up, but we were allowed to film it and get some pretty shots of it. But I'm thinking about buying some, like 5-inch floppies, and well, they were more than that, weren't they? Giant floppies and things, and just adorning them around the 8-inch floppies and adorning them around the place, just to sort of, I don't know, putting them outside on the walls.
On that original Fairlight, were you able to edit directly on the screen with the pen?
Ooh, let me see. Has it got a pen in the picture? Let me see that.
I think the answer to that's yes. But
it looks like it.
Wow, as early as 1979.
It looks like. There we go. Look, there is a pen there or something hanging from the screen. That's quite remarkable technology, isn't it?
It's kind of amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is amazing. Who hasn't got an 8-inch floppy, says Puckatronic in the chat room. Thank you very much for that. That's the sort of thing that we like to see in the chat room, the usual bawdy bunch that you are. Right, I'm guessing it's probably time to do our thank our sponsor, because it's that topic was got a lot of mileage out of that. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. So anyway, I'm going to say a word from our sponsor. And if you're watching the video stream, you will be seeing beautiful video of the Yamaha O1V96i, which is a digital desk from Yamaha, compact digital console, 16 in, 16 out on USB audio streaming, new high quality head amps. There's mic amps there, which I think are in the same Steinberg interfaces that I know PJ was very pleased with the sound of, and they're obviously very pleased and want me to point that out on this as well. It's got VCM effects, so onboard DSP, master strip, channel strip, vintage stomp effects, a RevX reverb, 40 mixing channels, 8 analog, 8 digital outputs. That's one ADAT output that is built as standard with a spare slot, which is a YGDAI slot. So you can put things like AES cards or another ADAT card or SPDIF, all sorts of stuff, or more analog in the spare slot. Advanced DAW support comes with Cubase AI. It can be used as a control surface. You can cascade a couple of them together if you need more mix channels. And 100mm motorized faders. In fact, Gaz, we've got one delivered here because I'm going to be reviewing it in the next couple of weeks. And Gaz was checking it out because he was thinking, actually, I carry all these things around me, mic amps and control surfaces, monitoring and all this sort of thing. And if I just take one of these, it's got all of this power in it. And I think it goes in a 19-inch rack as well. So, I know a lot of people are about in the box, but sometimes it's good to have something that is just built for the purpose and you don't have to worry about all of that stuff. So do check out an O1V96i from Yamaha. If you're in the UK, go to one of the Pulse stores, which is a store within a store in some of the larger dealers. Or in the US, any of the larger Yamaha dealers should have one in stock. Run some audio through it, maybe try a mic, see what it sounds like. In fact, you could record some audio because it's got a 16 channels I/O over USB, which is hard to believe. I'm looking forward to testing that. So you can route you've got 16 returns as well, which can also get full channel strips. Anyway, thanks once again to Yamaha for the continued sponsorship of the show. Right, that was that. Now let me see. Now this is something that has really flummoxed me. Right, so automatic delay compensation, right, is a good thing. One thinks is a great thing, in fact, and it essentially, you know, just to sort of clarify, what it does is internally it calculates the amount of delay that any kind of processing or plug-in latency and lines everything up so that it all matches. So if you've got a channel with a bunch of plugins across it and it delays everything by, you know, 24 samples or something, some such like, all the rest of the channels will be aligned, so you don't get this kind of disparate problem where audio is just going out of sync and out of alignment. But the other day I was up at a studio trying to get some Kenton MIDI devices working, and the whole set, the door was set up to have ADC across everything. But when I was recording the MIDI, we were playing this MIDI, and we got a click, and we were just playing a beat time, just trying to trigger some Moog modulars, and it was all happening before the beat, so it was delaying everything apart from the MIDI, which is really, and that's a real gotcha. I know in Logic it does. I don't know if there are other doors where it does that, but this was a real gotcha because it took us ages to figure out what the hell was going on. So if any of you kind of have this experience, because there is an issue with delay compensation, and that is not all doors are equal when it comes to that, and there are certainly settings that you can have which will affect the way that real-time performance or real-time instruments and inputs will work. So for instance, here in Logic, I don't know if you can see this, I'll try and zoom it in a bit more. There's the plug-in latency, you can have it off or just on audio and software instrument tracks, or all, which would mean buses and what have you. If you have it across audio and software instrument tracks, then everything is as it should be. When you record something, it's all timestamped and it's all lined up. But if you put it on all, which will give you the buses and aux as well, then that's when your MIDI goes completely out of whack. And I just wondered whether you had any sort of tricks or tips to how you use or set up ADC in your system. I don't know I know you use Cubase, don't you?
I do.
PJ, how does the ADC work in that?
ADC is a background process largely in Cubase, unless you're using hardware as inserts, because when you use hardware to record into the system, now I don't have a lot of experience with running external hardware as MIDI in Cubase, because I haven't done that for so many years until recently that I was using actually Pro Tools, and before that Vision and other sequencers, Digital Performer, for that purpose. However, my understanding is that direct monitoring takes care of all of that in Cubase.
If you're doing, have you tried it? Because this is the thing, because we hadn't actually come across this issue before, because everything's been in the box, you know, so you're recording your, you know, the virtual instruments, everything is, and then suddenly you're working with the outside world again with MIDI, and suddenly it's like, wow, what's happened? Everything has gone completely wrong, and it was a real sort of shock to the system, actually.
I really appreciate the way that Cubase has implemented automatic delay compensation. It was the first of the sequencers to do it, as I understand it, because Steinberg at least brags that point in all of their literature. It's extremely well implemented, and I never really have to think about it unless I did have to think about it recently when I was setting up a partial normalization to our patch bay with the software and trying to figure out how to set up all of my hardware inserts and how I want them implemented. And then it was just a matter of entering in, you know, the proper delay compensation for my A to D and D to A converter coming back. And then it takes care of it automatically in the background. However, as an exercise, because we're running a hybrid room, I have a Mac 8-core and then a PC set up here. Largely, I use Cubase for my own work, but I wanted to become more familiar with the current version of Logic, so I started some projects in Logic.
Right.
And I don't so much care for the way that automatic delay compensation is implemented in Logic. And I found that when I was starting a project, it was better to have it off and then only turn it on when
you need
I
it.
got to the mixing phase. Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's not necessarily a bad idea. In the chat room, which does allow me to tie in yet another sponsor, basically Sonic 8108. So the best video on latency from Mac is from Mac Pro Video on that, and very much detail, including Nick's problem. And I'd just like to point out that if indeed you are thinking of going to Mac Pro Video and downloading any videos, if you go to sonicstate.com/MPV, you will save 20% on any download that you might want to purchase. So if you want to find out more about that, including this very good video that Sonic 8108 points out, that will save you 20%. sonicstate.com/MPV, just to get a little plug in there for that. Right, hold on, sorry, I'm getting a bit switched out here. Right there, I can take some layers off. Mark, do you find that you're using how does ADC work in your environment? You're a Logic user as well, right?
I use Logic and Pro Tools, and I quite often end up in Logic because I try to do things in Pro Tools that I either don't know how to do, that's possible, I'm just not using it correctly, or it can't do. So because I tend to do quite a lot of things with a lot of MIDI, I just find it easier to work on that in Logic at the moment. Although Pro Tools is, I mean, I'm not on the most recent version of Pro Tools, so it may have caught up, of course.
Well, yeah, Pro Tools... Pro Tools has the certainly version 10. Well, I don't know what version you're on, but the later versions, the MIDI's got an awful lot better, because you used to have to route things, and it was a bit clunky. But now it's.
See, I did a live show. Woohoo!
Well,
I
what?
played guitar with
recently?
Jackson. Yes, on Saturday, the 5th of May.
Hey, congratulations!
Congratulations!
I was in a punk band in 1982 called Peeping Toms. And they did a 30th year anniversary show, and they invited me along to go and play with them. So when I did the live show, I thought, I really want to know if I was any good or not, right? So I got my little handheld kind of Zoom-style recorder, and I recorded the show using that. Because I ran the backing tracks on a computer, that meant that I could throw that recording back in the computer with the backing tracks and time align it, and kind of use that as a point, because there were some tempo changes and stuff, and I wanted to be able to get those, be able to edit things. And then I realized I'd forgotten to start recording the show at the beginning, but my partner Gina had been videoing the show, so I thought, well, that's digital as well. Her camera's digital, so I got the recording she made in her iPhone, and I threw that into Logic. I threw this all into Pro Tools first. So I threw my backing tracks into Pro Tools. I threw the recording I made on the night in the handheld recorder into Pro Tools, and then I threw her video stuff in. And then I kind of tried processing the different sounds to try and make, the crowd sound nice, and to make the backing tracks work.
More people in the audience, you mean? All going, Mark, you're great. We love you, Mark.
But what I noticed was that when I tried to, when I lined everything up, then when I put plugins on, of course, everything goes out of time with itself. And even though it's supposed to compensate for that, it doesn't always do it very well. It certainly doesn't do it with phase accuracy. So I gave up in Pro Tools and ended up in Logic again, and but still had the same problems really. So I ended up having to do long fades in and out of. In and out of crowd sound. And
really, that is surprising. I am surprised at that. I would have thought that with just a couple of stereo tracks, it should be able to get that right. Surely. But
no, because I'd get the things in phase with one another, and then I think it was more about what I wanted to do was I wanted to drag. I kind of like to drag audio about between different tracks as well. So anyway, something was happening where...
Are you sure it's not the fact that the two clocks were ever so slightly out? So, I mean, you're not going to get sample sync for the duration without the two things being locked to the same clock. I mean, that's just unlikely. I mean, it's possible, but it's unlikely.
Oh, sure. No, I understand that.
Okay.
I mean, I think that the iPhone recording was probably the worst. The live... And also the fact that Gina was standing 100 feet away from the stage, or 50 feet, or I don't know how big the place was. I don't know about feet. Well, there will be a time delay between where she was standing and then if she moved around, which she did, then that, of course, messes around with the time delay, and things are going to go in and out of sync and stuff when, depending on where she was standing, because it was a big enough place that would have made a difference. But... I don't know. I just sort of noticed that normally for me, I just switch it on and don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when you get a situation where suddenly it's like, oh, what's this? You know, it's something that's been going on behind the scenes that just you thought was taking care of stuff is now interfering and getting in the way. Some interesting chats, some comments in the chat room about Logic being absolutely great for MIDI, but live being, you know, by far the best for audio, and that we should perhaps read the manual, because the one thing that I have noticed about, you know, I didn't even know this setting existed in Logic, or that there was that granularity of the, you know, switching between everything and software and instrument tracks, and the fact that you can kind of tweak it. I just really didn't know that. So I mean, I'm a bit behind the times myself a little bit. So I mean, I'm guessing things have moved on a little bit even since we used MIDI, because I mean, literally what Will was trying to do was just trying to get his analog synths plugged into the Kentons, so that he could run it alongside some stuff that he was doing, and it was just that simple, and just that process and opened up this whole huge can of worms. And we spent about 30 minutes trying to figure out what the heck was going on, because it was almost impossible to diagnose, and that's was all? The culprit.
Only 30 minutes?
Well, it might have been a bit longer, maybe 35.
So the MIDI ahead then, and it just
MIDI was ahead, yeah. But then what was really bizarre, we had this even weirder thing when it was switched to all. You would play, so that you'd have some audio playing, you'd have the count in on the click, you'd play to the MIDI, and then it would record and play back, but you'd get double the latency. So it was nothing like what you played, because obviously you've got the delayed, it's compensated from the beginning, so you're already, you know, 60 milliseconds out because of the ADC, and then it compensates on the recording on top of that, so you end up being like 120 milliseconds out. Because there's one thing that Logic has got, which is quite cool, assuming everything works well, is MIDI objects, you can actually have them ADC for MIDI as well. So it just lines everything up. In the side, if you go to the track info, and you have the info box open, then I think it's either for the part or for the entire track. You select a part and it says delay. If you click on the delay and bring the menu down, it gives you, you know, you've got presets, but it's also got automatically compensate, which is a nice little extra. Oh. It's useful for MIDI. So if you get in a mess, try messing around with all of those solutions and see if any of them work. And let me know if it takes you less than 30 minutes to figure out what the hell's going on. Because yeah. But anyway, I thought it was an interesting topic myself, but perhaps a bit specific. Mechanic says in the chat room that hopefully Copperland is the solution. That's an interesting idea. You know, we have talked about Copperland a few times, and I really would like to see it come in, because there were some great applications. And what was really cool about the Copperland people, I know we're going off in a bit of a tangent, is they build all these brilliant little gizmos, and sort of you could do this with it. But because they are the technology rather than the applications, they can't make it, because it's seen as competing with their potential partners, which seems to me is that they need to start a new company that just implements all these brilliant ideas they have, and then maybe it would be a little more the take up would be better, because as soon as somebody builds a must-have application, then everybody's going to want it. I mean, like the thing that Copperland was good for was the CV, the MIDI to CV, and the trigger and gates and things. That was brilliant. I forget the name of the hardware for that, but that was pretty good.
Couldn't they license their designs?
Oh, sorry.
Well, yes, I think they actually allow, you know, that they have their application sales team will assist anybody who wants to embed it in them and help them make something, and maybe offer tweaks and suggestions and what have you. So yeah, I mean, I'm guessing so, but it just needs to get critical mass really before that's going to happen, I suppose.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, I do too.
So. It's a shame Dave Spears isn't on this topic about plugins and latency compensation, because I'm almost certain that he's spoken about it before, and I think that he said that for a digital audio workstation to work that stuff out, it asks the plugin, and the plugin reports its delay compensation to the DAW, right? So if I'm an EQ plugin and I'm delaying everything by 256 samples or something, I just have that written in my code somewhere, and then the DAW can just add those numbers up depending on what plugins I put in my channel strip, and it works it all out. But I've got a sense that those numbers are often inaccurate. So my phase coherence problem was down to one particular plugin, which I'm not going to name and shame,
Right.
Which must have been reporting to the DAW that I'm doing this, and it clearly wasn't doing that. It was doing something totally different, so it was throwing everything out of time.
I suppose but I suppose the challenge must be, like, for instance, if you've got something that has multiple potential processing modules within a plugin,
exactly,
and you switch them on or off, then they're going to introduce more latency. And unless you just kind of go, well, even if you've only got EQ on, I'm going to tell that we're going to be delaying it by the maximum possible number of samples. I mean, that might be good practice, but it's not good for the listener, is it? Because it's like, wow, that's really screwing with the sound. If you haven't maybe got ADC set up, it's going to make it sound wrong. So it must be quite difficult. And if it varies, then it depends how often the DAW polls the plugin. Because if the plugin can't go, excuse me, my ADC settings change, you need to update to this. I guess it does it every time you hit play, doesn't it? There must be a calculation that goes, right, okay, what are we all doing? Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, go. I'm guessing that's how it works, but I don't know. I mean, yes, it is a shame.
I'm not certain of the veracity of all of that, but I do know that the harder you hit the CPU, the less reliable ADC becomes.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you have an older, an older machine, it can become problematic pretty quickly.
So the answer is
I was running an older machine with a plugin that does everything that you can possibly think of to make something sound better.
Yeah, that might be the issue.
So,
Mark, could you do me a favour and unplug and replug your headset? It sounds like it's just sort of deteriorating a little bit. It's done that thing where it's slightly crunching up. It's sort of just.
I'm a little bit worried about this computer because I think I think that Skype has, oh my God,
eating up all the resources.
Yeah, I think it's got a memory leak, my version of Skype. Or when I'm running video, something weird's happening because I mute it sometimes, and now it's got to the point where I can't actually mute and unmute anymore at the moment. So let me just try.
Okay. Because when we started this conversation, I mean, the video looks amazing and the audio was really good as well.
Has that made a difference?
Not really, but we'll live with it. It's not unlistenable. It just it was better before. In fact, the chat room is suggesting that your son has hacked your PC. If you weren't watching,
I think you sound like Dave Robinson broadcasting. From
you do sound a bit
conference room in central London.
That's very true. Not far off there. Not far off the mark. Right. What else have we got? Well, I'm glad we got that one out of the way. And then we've also got. Oh gosh, we've got loads, haven't we? I didn't realise we must be. What should we do next? Does anyone want to do? I tell you what. Let's do Google Hangouts first, because this is quite thrilling. I think potentially. Anyway, so just hold on there a minute.
Honey, you got me feeling some kind of way I can't explain, but I'm gonna give it one more try. My heart's racing and my legs are shaking now. Try not to stare, but I can't control my eyes.
I'm hanging out on the Great Barrier Reef. Follow us on Google
I wish I was.
to see myself and others launch our exciting new project to reveal the ocean.
We're here to sing for this beautiful woman who is having her birthday in the hospital.
Right, I'm gonna pause it there because there's lots of lifestyle nonsense in that. But essentially, Google Hangouts, we've all heard about this as part of the Google Plus thing, and probably most of the people on the planet have got some attachment with Google, whether it be a email account or whatever, or use the search engine. But now with Google Hangouts, which is like a kind of video conferencing thing, they've added this new thing called On Air, which allows you to. You still have up to 10 participants, but it allows you to broadcast it so you can embed the player and then people can watch, unlimited number of people can watch it, which seems like it could be a pretty cool idea. But at the same time, the video is recorded and linked to your YouTube account, so it's archived and uploaded to YouTube at the same time or also after. I don't know, it must be a staging server somewhere. I don't know of the quality of this, but this could be... I mean, they're using music and a band's performance there to great effect, to kind of show the potential there. And I'm thinking, yeah, damn right. I don't know. This seems like a brilliant idea. Mark, I'm waiting for that gig from your living room your sitting room, you know, where you can get your guitar out and do some songs, and you can do it like, you know, I don't know, let's say every Saturday night on the 1st of the month or something, you know, nearest the 1st of the month. Let's have the Mark Club night.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's do it.
Oh dear, that's really gone wrong now.
No, no.
I think what you might do is you might need to quit Skype and restart again, and I'll go to PJ while you do that, if that's all right.
Okay, mate. All right.
PJ, this seems,
sir.
I mean, for someone like you who can play, you know, the socks off a piano, surely, is this exciting? I mean...
this is tremendously exciting, and I think Mark's trying to get our attention here.
Ah, okay.
No, I'm just...
Okay, no, I think you need to quit Skype, Mark, otherwise it's going to just get... Okay, yeah, it is very exciting.
Yeah, and for one very specific reason. I am getting ready, and I was going to make mention of this on a future show, not too distant future show, to do this very thing that you just suggested of Mark. We just rebuilt our booth, which has a piano in it, and I want to start doing a live performance series from that booth. I think probably once a week, maybe more often if I have the time. And I think that... and have some guests and create a blog from that. But this technology is fantastic, because this would allow me to do a live broadcast, archive it directly to YouTube, link it to my website, and possibly garner more exposure than I would get from simply pushing it from my own blog or my own YouTube
Well, the
channel.
fact, tying it in with YouTube is, I mean, you know, just since we've been putting this on YouTube, it's, you know, the viewership's gone up because we get, you know, 1,000 or whatever extra viewers just from the YouTube video.
Right.
So I find that kind of quite... Hold on, I'm just going to... There we are. Mark's changed the balance of power on the screen there. I'm just do that. And it's
also the fact that all of these streams and the way that you would embed this video is all aggregated in one process. So like you say, you do this live broadcast and it goes to Google Hangouts and is immediately archived to your YouTube channel, and then you can embed it on your website. It simplifies the process of creating a live performance and then a show for future.
Well, it certainly does. I mean, the only thing that I'm kind of missing from this concept, I mean, there are other aspects to it which I think are worth mentioning, but I think the only thing that I'm missing from this concept is the idea that we have to use the browser as the client. You know, if I could have some more robust software solution where I can just go, right, take this stream and feed it to the node within the Googleplex that can just receive it, so I can control the quality. I don't need to worry about the Hangouts. You know, there needs to be a more robust, because doing it in the browser is not terribly robust, and it means you can't address multiple video devices, and audio becomes an issue. Those sort of things. So it'd be
Google should sell an upgrade, a professional upgrade, in which you would have a desktop client.
Yeah, I would buy that. I mean, it's very similar to Wirecast and all those kind of things that you can get these professional products that do that. And video, was it called Video Toaster? Can't remember. I tried one on the PC a little while back. But yeah, all of this stuff actually makes this sort of thing potential. Because if you think about it, we're talking about going to a gig. Hold on, setting up a gig. I'm just going to get Mark because I think he's sorted himself out. Quickly before I come back in. Is that you? I can't see you. Here we go. I'll call him now. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Let's see if we can get Mark back on the picture. Hey, Mark. How are you doing? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, yeah.
You're very quiet now. I don't know what's going on. It sounds like you've got your headset in your pocket or something.
Oh, it's turned it down. Why is it done that? Hang on a minute. Okay,
that's better. Yeah, there we go. So we were just talking with with PJ about the idea of Google Hangouts. I mean, is that something that I mean, PJ's going to be doing this kind of thing. I mean, do you think this...
turned me into Dave Robinson then.
Do you think this is going to be something that would appeal to you? Or...
do I think it's going to be something that would appeal to me? I don't actually. From the point of view of some other things that I do, not just music. I think it could probably be quite useful, actually, for having, I don't know, kind of coaching calls or spiritual discussions or those kinds of things. It could probably be quite cool. But I don't quite understand, how do you have 10 people in a room, do you? And then anybody can watch it.
The way that it works, you can have up to 10 participants in Google Hangouts, and you get the kind of the screen with the other screens below, and when they talk, that it automatically switches to them, which I think could be a little bit confusing unless you were using it for multiple cameras. That would be kind of cool, but then that's going to be difficult over the network. But then that whole that whole event with however many people are participating in it can then be embedded so people can view what's going on rather than participate. And I don't know if there's a chat element to it, but I would like to try it. But as I was saying to PJ, it's a shame that it has to be in the browser. I want a more robust client, really, so that I could, for instance, what we do here, it's taken me quite some time to get the technology together to be able to make all of this, and all this switching happen with all of the, the various cameras and what have you, and I don't see how I can interface that with a kind of browser-based plugin. It just doesn't feel robust enough, and I think that would be kind of something that I'd want to try out. But I'm guessing, if you think about it, when you go to play a gig, you might take a sound guy, you got a van, you got a driver. I mean, why not? Wouldn't it be better just to kind of do your garage up and just do the gigs from there? Do you think we may be ending up in a situation where this is replacing some, not all, of the live event market? So, small gigs where a band's playing. I mean, it's not the same thing, admittedly. Do you think there is a way it could?
I'm sorry, Mark. Please go ahead.
I was just getting overexcited because I did go to a gig on the 5th of May, and I haven't been to a gig for years and years and years. And the reason I don't go to gigs is because I have social anxiety, and I don't really like talking to human beings. This is quite comfortable for me because I'm in my own environment.
Sure.
And it's kind of like I can chat to you guys and you're on the screen, and there's no real, problem with it. But face-to-face communication for me can sometimes be a bit difficult. But I loved going to a gig on the 5th of May. I was in this really loud, noisy pub with this really kind of honky PA, and the guitarist was too loud, and the drummer had really bright cymbals, and just the whole atmosphere of it. How could you do that over the internet? I don't think you could. Yeah. And even though there's elements of that I don't enjoy, there's elements of it that I just wouldn't give up for, love nor money.
Yeah,
so.
Well, of course. But it'd be interesting. Yeah. Maybe there'll be a whole set of plugins so you can you just get something that over maximizes all of the outgoing audio, so that it's just really loud and over compressed and slightly distorted and a bit crappy.
Oh, that will happen. That's already happening.
I could do that. I could do that already. Yeah.
I think we definitely, we're definitely looking at simply an extension of already existing venue. So it's similar, but in real time.
Oh, so the gig will be happening, but then also there'll be a stream as well.
Yeah. So it's kind of like being involved on the back end of taping a DVD, of a concert, or a video file of a concert. So it's almost like being first to preview the video of the DVD of the concert. And I think that's a unique venue, but certainly not one that I feel anyway would replace the live experience. There's just nothing like being in front of a wall of sound.
No, that's true. Well, how about this? I mean, let's just sort of riff on this for a bit. Imagine, you've got a small venue and it can only seat, 100 people, say. But if they got this right, they could either upsell to an aggregator of this kind of thing where people would subscribe and they'd get additional revenue based on, this stuff just going out live. Or, as another thing, you would then get a sort of change in the way that home theatre and active speakers and stuff are created. So you can somehow, through the technology, create a more gig-like experience. Whether that be, you've got just the speakers become slightly more quality, slightly able to handle rougher audio, so they just kick it out a little bit, without being super loud. And why not even, you can press a little button that squirts a beer smell out of some port of the back of your...
Exactly.
So here's you bring up a good point, Nick. Perhaps this will revive people's interest in having better quality audio systems at home. once they begin to realize that this is a viable way to experience live music, or they appreciate this experience. But yeah, you bring up a good point. This could spin off several different iterations of business models. And I think it's exciting. It's really exciting, especially for performing musicians and others like Mark was saying. It'll be great for seminars, for teaching, and this type of thing has already been done to some degree for quite a while.
In the chat room, Azia had saying, I must be missing something. There are things called live streams already, and you are absolutely right. I mean, this stuff does happen, but the fact that Google have launched something that makes anybody with a webcam able to broadcast without having to set up, I mean, the amount of time and energy I had to explain, to just get this setup working, multi-camera switching, all of it. I mean, agreed, it's more fancy than what more people want, but just decent audio and maybe a couple of cameras, which you'd want for something like this, is incredible.
This in effect,
this might speed up, make this more mainstream more quickly, I suppose.
Yeah, this in effect could possibly democratize it. It makes it really easily accessible to people that may not have even given it a thought before, or those that have. It'll make it easier for them to output more and more and more. So we'll be seeing, I think,
if they changed it ever so slightly, so that you can put 10 feeds in it, but whoever's on the receiving end of that can pick which feed they want to watch. You could have a feed from the drummer and a feed from the guitarist and a feed from the keyboard player. And forgive me if you really discussed this when I was offline for a moment. But you could jump around different areas of the gig, and maybe you could have a couple of VIPs who have like webcams on their heads or something.
That's an interesting idea. We looked at what? Do you remember that? I can't remember the name. That was called Manycam or something like that. It was something that we looked, and it was like a representation of a gig, and you could drive the camera where you wanted it to be and focus on the keyboard player. I mean, that was some sort of clever, quick
QuickTime
VR thing. That's as Eric. Hold on. Yes, Andy Key said it would be great for porn, and I dare say that's where it's going to go. To be perfectly honest, it's going to be used for. Yeah, I mean, of course it will. Puckatronic says, I agree. This will just be 10 million TJs pressing buttons on an NPC. Yes, there will be a lot of that. But I'm guessing, as in, being able to differentiate yourself musically from anything else, then, you're going to have to come up against the same issues. You're still going to have to be better at it and be able to catch attention and maybe just be good or figure out how to get the most from this particular scenario. But I think it could be the beginning of something. I mean, it depends. I mean, I think there are a few things they probably need to sort out. But I like the fact, if we could have an alternative to Skype, for instance, just if there's a bad Skype day, we could use perhaps, the Google Hangouts, but the problem for me is I need to not run it in a browser, because in a browser it's limited by a number of factors, because the linking up to the external cameras and all of that sort of thing is not as robust as if it is a dedicated application. Just saying, like.
Right.
Yeah. So let's see what's next. Yeah, but I know anyway. Yeah, Google Plus Hangouts. I think now it's what they were just bringing it out to various people, but now I think it's everywhere. I think you can do it everywhere. This one. My studio needs more of this stuff. I think it does. This is particularly stylish. This is the Darth Vader USB hub. I'm liking that. Who makes that? That's by the Darth Vader. It's for 4 USB 2 ports. There it is. Isn't that lovely? You can buy it from the Neato shop at $44.99. And what I did is I sent out a couple of sort of social media posts and just checked a few things out. And we need more of this kind of stuff. And Tony Barbieri, who hasn't been around for a little while, chipped in, and he came up with some cracking suggestions. In fact, there's one here specifically for you, Mark, which I think you'll appreciate. If you look at that, there's like what looks like a two-stroke engine hub. I'm liking the look of that. And the other one that was particularly good was the Doomsday device hub that got a key and a special button, so when everything goes bad, I think there is a USB hub there somewhere, but I like the idea of that. There's just tons of it. It seems like there's not enough of this in the world. There were loads on this as well. What was this? These are kind of all these other funky. I mean, these are just USB hubs,
they're
but
quite cute.
they are, aren't they? There's lots of this kind of thing. Anyone else see anything specific? PJ, I think did you send something through? I'm not sure.
I did.
Got a chance to get it.
I sent you. Yeah, I sent you a few links. ThinkGeek.com is a great place for this kind of thing. Not just USB hubs, but other things as well. And I think, let's see, a couple of the things I sent through was one of those guitar pick makers, like Gaz has, is fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're cool.
I'm blanking on one, but also a USB beverage cooler, which is an idea that you can stick an aluminum can inside this device, hook it up to your USB port, and it'll keep your beverage cool. About 10 years ago, I had this idea in the opposite direction, a beverage warmer to keep your coffee thermos warm, and none of the people around me thought it was a good idea, and overnight I forgot it. But I think ThinkGeek sells one of those as well.
Yeah, there's a Star Trek electronic door chime you sent through. I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
Oh, I probably don't want to show my
Gmail
interface.
One of those.
What's this? Oh, the guitar pick. That is cool. You can make out of credit cards or anything. All these. I just think we don't have enough kind of groovy toys in the studio. As if we don't have enough groovy toys in the studio. But I mean, the idea that we can have just things that are a bit more kind of technology that has a bit more of a thematic fun. USB LED beverage. That's the other thing I forgot about. There was the that came in via Facebook. There was a Marshall fridge, which was just
I think we looked at that before, didn't we?
I'm not sure if we did.
Marshall fridge.
I'm going to see if I can find that.
I want one of those.
I don't want my Gmail up on. The Marshall fridge. There was I'll see if I can find that. I'm sorry. This is. That's the one that I knew came in. It's on a Facebook thing, but I don't think I can get to that without signing in, and I haven't got a keyboard on this.
Where can you purchase one of those? I'd like to buy a Marshall fridge.
I will have to check. I will have to put that in the links. And there was a video, really, really awful video of a girl in sort of thigh-length PVC boots, which was not necessary to sell the fridge. The fridge was fine. It was a very sort of corny 80s rock and roll joke, but that was kind of great fun. I enjoyed that. Mark, I mean, how do you get your studio kind of a bit fun? I mean, do you use kind of unusual instruments or stickers on your stuff, or because I know a lot of people like to personalise their gear. Do you do that?
You need to go and watch the video I made of my show that I did last weekend. I was playing my guitar with a hammer drill. And it's very personalised now because most of the paint's missing from the front of it. But I've seen people playing guitars with electric drills on YouTube because I kind of put mine on YouTube and then I tried searching for it and a whole load of others came up. But I wasn't doing what everyone else does, which is to put the pick on the drill bit and have the pick play the strings. I was actually using the hammer action on the wood at the back to kind of beat the living daylights out of the guitar, and it's the same kind of, because it goes, of course it makes all the strings vibrate, so that created quite an interesting effect. So in answer to your question, I think things in my studio get customized over time by the strange things that I do to them. So any of the customized stuff might be like my circuit bed and stuff is all painted weird colors and stuff. So I've got some bright stuff in my studio, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have, and I'm feeling like I should get the spray can out, or just maybe somebody should sell stickers specifically for pieces of equipment that fit in the gaps between the knobs, so you can just kind of customize them that way. Print out templates.
That would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, there we go. There's another idea. I'll throw that out there. I'll just take some free samples somewhere down the line. We'll see.
I noticed that Tara Bush had put a TR909 swimsuit on Facebook.
Yeah,
see that?
I did actually, and I must say, that model was absolutely stunning. I mean, it was kind of hard not to think.
909 or the woman.
the model who was wearing the said swimwear. There was a 909. There was some various chaos oscillators. various, and I mean, she looked absolutely gorgeous. It was hard not to kind of think that's a classic example of, wow, I must buy one of those, but I'm not sure what it is I want. I don't think it's actually the swimsuit. I think it's what's in the swimsuit, which is kind of is not obviously not what's on sale, and it's a slightly worrying kind of psychological thing.
I think if I wore that swimsuit to the local swimming pool, I'd get arrested.
I think you would too. And that was the other thing. I mean, nobody is going to look that good apart from her in it. You know, I mean, you know, it's pretty unlikely. You'd have to have a lot of bottle to wear with it because everyone's going to look at you. And if I know anything about most women anyway, who aren't absolutely perfect and gorgeous in every way, it's that they don't really want people looking at them when they've hardly got any clothes on.
Exactly.
Anyway,
and going, what is that? What are you wearing? I don't understand what it is, because there's going to be people out there who don't actually know what a 909 is, although, you know, we live in a fascinating little world. If my dad saw it, he'd be like, what is that? You know?
Where was it? Somebody said, that's gone. Oh yes, Andy Key said he tried to get his missus to get one and she said no.
Oh.
Never mind. Right, well, I've got to go because I've got to go and pick my daughter up from gym. But that's been great fun. Thank you very much for joining me this week. It's been time has passed as usual in a flash. So I want to thank you very much for joining us. I want to thank our sponsors. Remember, Yamaha O1V96i compact digital mixing console. Check them out, and also the Mac Pro Video thing. If you want to find out about automatic delay compensation, those settings in various DAWs, there's a great video on Mac Pro Video. You can save 20% on any of that stuff by going to sonicstate.com/MPV sonicstate.com/MPV. I wonder, this might open. I might actually be able to see the... here we go. I'm going to show it now, just quickly. There's the swimsuit. Mm-hmm. Now...
Woohoo!
The thing is, that bit is great as well. I mean, she's just got such a fantastically sultry look to her. Anyway, but that's a fabulous... It does look pretty good, doesn't it? But I can't think anybody else would look quite so good in it as she does.
My daughter probably would, actually.
Okay, well... That's probably something I don't really want to digest right now.
Yeah, that's a topic for
another time. Anyway, PJ Tracy, thank you very much for joining us. PJ Tracy Sound. You can see what PJ's up to. And great to have you in video again there, PJ. Thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your Hangouts. Do let us know. We'll publicise it and try and get as many people to come along and take a look at that for sure.
Great. Most definitely, Nick. And this video... Tryst, I think, will be a regular thing. I think I've worked out all of the bugs, so
excellent.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Your signal path sounds fantastic. And of course, also Mark Tinley, likebeing.com. Thank you also very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you once again.
You're very welcome.
And shame on you for bringing the 909 swimsuit into the show, but I'm sort of glad you did, because I'd forgotten just what a great photo that was. And just before we go, one last shot. Anyway, that's it. Sonic Talk number 266 is now over. Thank you very much for watching. Right.